sights to show you.
Welcome back to the Double Movie View It, a horror podcast. I'm Jesse Spitzer.
And I'm J.R. Lees.
And we have our amazing Master Andrew back to talk more about folk horror. This was not originally part of the plan, but we had so much fun talking about the Wicker Man, and I just really wanted to dive deeper. We all wanted to dive deeper into this genre. So,
and we're not allowed to watch movies unless it's for this podcast.
Right.
So
that's just a waste of time.
Exactly. Just watching for fun.
Yeah.
So,
so I think we all have a lot to talk about. So let's just jump into it. And we are joined once again by Andrew to talk more about folk horror, just in general.
Yes.
So happy to have you back on again.
I'm pumped to be back.
Yeah. I was pretty excited to go into this episode just in general, because I feel like folk horror was kind of a blind spot. And oh my God, like I had so much fun prepping for this.
Yes. Yeah. So Jason, you shared that documentary with us. What was the title of that again? I don't think I wrote it down.
Oh, it is on.
It's very short and easy to remember.
Yeah, it was. Amuse yourselves there. Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched: A History of Folk Horror.
So good.
Yeah.
Such a good documentary.
And it's on Tubi. It's on Shudder.
It's on YouTube.
It's easy. It's on YouTube too. It's a special feature on a box set of folk horror. I mean, it is infinitely watchable.
And interstitial animations by Guy I love to see, Guy Madden, the Canadian filmmaker, who is just everywhere and does really, really fascinating, like experimental. He's made a lot of movies that look like they were made in the 1920s.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, really fascinating person, and just like I know that horror as a genre as a whole is like an area where I have very little literacy. And so it was such a welcome introduction into this like little corner of horror that I really knew almost nothing about. And I wound up watching a ton of movies. I'm not even sure exactly how many, but most of them that were films that were mentioned in that documentary.
Mm-hmm. I was amazed by how efficient that documentary is, because it's 3 hours long, which is, it's a bit on the longer side, but it covers so much ground.
It does,
like in so many different countries and different cultures, and it really just kind of, if you are like I was, just completely oblivious to like the major movies that that contribute to this genre. Not only does it cover those in great detail, but it also it really hyper zooms into like different cultures, and after a while it almost felt like it was just a documentary on folklore.
Yeah. I loved it. It wasn't the same five talking heads. We weren't talking to the same five guys that go to all conventions it's not Tom Savini, and it's not the third guy from the left in Halloween Ends. It's like actual people that are accredited, that have degrees in this
scholars
stuff.
A really good mix of scholars and filmmakers too. I was very impressed by that.
For sure.
And it makes you just make a giant long list. I love how, much like folk horror, it kind of goes by tendrils. It's kind of like, okay, we all know the Unholy Trilogy. We know now from watching the doc. Witchfinder General, which I keep forgetting is Conqueror Worm, to find it on Tubi. Blood on Satan's Claw, and Wicker Man. But then I know those three, so I'm kind of like in my mind, it's got to be Control, paste, those things.
Yeah.
But the doc goes through and points out everything else that you thought was Children of the Corn. I would have never thought about that being folk horror. And I'm like, oh, absolutely, 100%,
that's
all that kind of stuff, yeah.
The documentary kept on like pulling things like Doctor Who comes up at one point.
Right, yeah.
And it's just like, wow, I would have never imagined that to come up in this kind of a documentary, but it fits right in. Like it.
I will say, I think that if I had one quibble with the documentary, it's that I think it maybe defines folk horror a little too broadly. And I started to think about, like, if we're thinking about all these edge cases, and a couple of the movies that I watched, I'm not totally, I loved most of them. I'm not totally convinced that they all fit into this category really neatly. And it did make me kind of, because the documentary its project isn't really defining the term of folk horror. It did make me kind of have to sit with that term and think about what it means and like what I think actually qualifies as folk horror.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I think my main self assignment for this is kind of I wanted to dissect why, because folk horror, everything I've seen, it really sticks with me. It really for days afterwards, and I really wanted to dissect what that is and why is it that it affects me personally so much. And that's kind of the lens that I was watching a lot of these movies in. And I think I've kind of determined that as someone who is kind of like I think a flaw that I have is my confidence in my skepticism of things. And I think that's something that in a lot of these movies is like the defining feature that gets you to have the worst ending possible. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I love, to me, folk horror is one of two things. And sometimes it's both and sometimes it's neither, which is another, like you said, it's very broad. To me, there's kind of like the two sides of it is like the kind of the eldritch horror side of things, where it's like these ancient beings and gods and demons and creatures and monsters, and that stuff is scary, on just a basic level of like the fear of unknown. But what really interests me and what I love about this genre is the social aspect of it, the societal. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of folklore is just kind of like it's kind of like echoes of like what a society finds important, or like a society's trauma. It kind of feeds into the stories they tell, and then it turns into folklore, and then we develop new stories based off of those stories. And it's always just kind of like that aspect of it, like the society. What does this folklore tell us about this place that is really I find fascinating? And then the flip side of that is like being an outsider coming into this world and being treated like an outsider, usually to like a fatal end, is like super scary to me.
Yeah. I was thinking about, I don't know if either of you have seen the Lars von Trier film Dogville. I was thinking about this. It's, oh gosh, is it Katie Holmes, I think? No. It's, I can't remember who is the lead actor in it, but it's that one that he made that's in a blacked out warehouse. It's set in a small mountain town in Colorado, but it's all shot in just like a black box space with like chalk outlines for all the buildings. And it's about this young teacher who comes into this very close-minded town and is essentially just driven to destruction, self-destruction, and eventually death by this community that really just doesn't want her there and doesn't want anyone like her there. And that's a really interesting example, I think, of a movie that I don't know if I would call it horror, but I think it does tick a lot of those folk horror kinds of boxes, because it is, it's so much about like kind of the almost murderous groupthink that can happen in like isolated communities. And that, I think, is like kind of one of the hallmarks for me of what makes a film like really decidedly folk horror.
Same. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the documentary, they talk about the lottery, which I think is one of my favorite short stories ever, because that really ticks into, you see a character become an outsider, like go from the inside to the outside. And like, again, it is like that think tank of like, or like an echo chamber. It's like, oh, we all agree this is the thing. And it works really well until it's no longer convenient for you. And then at that point, it's too late. You're on the outside.
Yeah.
Which is also just something that's very scary. Just like the idea of losing your community and losing the safety of the community to becoming like the thing that the community needs to get rid of. Yeah, I think all that fits into folklore just in general really well.
I was going through, it's like season to taste. It's like, is this or is this not? Because I was going through the definitions, and I have a couple pamphlets I read, or a couple podcasts, and they were kind of going through is Children of the Corn, Stephen King's, is that folk horror? And it hits the boxes. It is a small community, outsiders come in. It is the older people that are coming in, and then the community is younger, so it's an age thing. It is the fear of change, but it doesn't really hit the whole idea that big reveal at the end because you know what's going to happen. So it's that vibe. They were arguing that Chainsaw is that folk horror.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
And like it has the small area, the small community, the outsiders come in. The ages are a little bit flipped in that one because the older people are the scary community. And it could, but also it doesn't have the vibe. I mean, back in the 70s, it wasn't a slasher movie, it was like a body count movie.
Right.
And then someone else pointed out Blair Witch, but Blair Witch is a folk horror movie.
Yeah.
It kind of hurt my brain because I'm going, oh yeah, because you can be more than one thing. And that's the one we're going, there's beautiful folklore to the Blair Witch, especially the Curse of the Blair Witch, the fake documentary they used to sell it. And that's what I think folk horror is where it makes its own lore. Because Wicker Man, they have attractions and rides now. There's a lore that's built up from that movie. Lighthouse is one we watched, and I don't know what it means. I don't know. I've watched that twice, and I love it. And it's one of those things where I
Such
get
a beautiful
caught up.
movie.
Oh, it's just every frame could make a poster or a painting. But that does barely fits. It's not a community. It's a place where they both show up at the same time. They're working in someone else's backyard in someone else's lighthouse. But it absolutely fits the idea that so it doesn't have the boxes aren't checked. But to me, and there's no Cthulhu. It's just maybe is there an octopus? Is it really ripped and roared, ready to go? But to me, that is man where it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
that is somewhere, and then there's a piece before they got there. So it absolutely is. And
I think like there's this sort of alternate definition of folk horror that some of these movies hew closer to, I think, and that I do also find really appealing. And Jesse, it's something that you mentioned about kind of like the almost cosmic horror of the landscape. It's like there's something like inscribed into the land that is that horror. And there's a couple movies that I watched that I think fit into that, like I use this as an excuse to watch Picnic at Hanging Rock, which the documentary mentions, and it's been on my to-watch list, I think, since I was in film school.
Because normally you wouldn't be allowed to watch that. You're legally obligated to not watch that.
It's such a great movie, and it's like I find that still the folk horror movies that generally are most likely to hit with me are the ones that are British or like Northern European and have kind of that like pagan sensibility to them. And I was thinking about like what is it about American folk horror that often, with a couple exceptions, doesn't really connect with me. And Australian folk horror is the same too when it's made by white filmmakers, is that I think part of it is that our connection to this place has not existed for nearly as long as like the connection that people have to their ancestral homes in like Wales or Scotland or Norway. And I think that Picnic at Hanging Rock does this incredible thing because it's this period piece. It's set in like the late 19th century, I think these schoolgirls.
1900.
1900, yeah. These like white Christian schoolgirls in Australia going out to this geological feature for a picnic, and there's a disappearance, and it's handled. I mean, the filmmaking is beautiful. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous movie, and there's this enormous sense of dread throughout like the entire picture, just associated with this place and these big towering rocks that sort of look like there's faces in them, and there's a teacher at the beginning of the movie who has this monologue about like these rocks have been here for hundreds of millions of years, rising out of the earth and waiting for us, and it really does feel like Cthulhu is going to get you, or there's just some force it's like watching a fly right on the edge of a Venus flytrap and just kind of dancing around blithely, not knowing how much danger they're in just from being in this place that doesn't belong to them.
And they even recognize, I watched that movie on your recommendation, and I also really enjoyed it. But they even like mention the dangers sort of passively. It's just like, oh yeah, just remember there's poisonous snakes and ants, and like, and I like that line that the teacher says at one point. It's like, oh, this is what we do for enjoyment. It's just like go to a dangerous place because it's different and weird.
Yeah. And I think it's like the lands. It's some like the scale is what's frightening in that movie, and in a lot of these movies that are more about landscape or like sort of like the inscription of the past. think it was John Muir was the naturalist in America who wrote, it was kind of an early inventor of the idea of naturalism, and wrote about the experience of climbing to the top of a mountain and sitting at the top and it being kind of like a natural cathedral and having this experience of the sublime, of like seeing something that's beautiful and it's like awe-inspiring in its beauty, but then also it's terrifying because you're so small and insignificant in comparison to it.
Yeah, I love that. I think about with the, like you're talking about the land itself kind of being an entity with folk horror. I really like the themes, and it was something that was touched on a lot in Wicker Man, of like the theme of like a new culture coming into a place, and kind of it almost feels like a coat of paint is just kind of laid over everything, where it's like it's like, oh, these used to be whatever Christian temples, and now we repurpose them as pagan temples or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing as well, of like just kind of like these movies have that theme of like chipping that paint away a little bit, and you just get a little peek at what's underneath, and you never really get the full picture. And I think that movie does that really well. I love that the picnic, the way that the inciting incident, everything, that all that kind of happens pretty early on in the movie, and the rest of the movie is like just the fallout of like
and so much of it is just like confusion about trying to understand what happened,
and like knowing that you'll never get an answer.
Really, really haunting. And it's another one that I think, like, is it a horror? I don't know that it's a horror. It definitely has elements of folk horror in it, but I don't know that I would call it a horror film.
Yeah, it's got there's certainly moments where it's just like, oh yeah, okay, this is definitely. I think the way I felt walking away from the movie makes me feel like it was a horror movie.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you saying that, I think, on our last episode, that's kind of one of your criteria for judging what makes a horror film, is like the feeling that it leaves you with. I've been thinking a lot about that, and it definitely, by that criterion, absolutely qualifies.
We're all sitting here mulling it around right now in our heads. So if I'm still trying to define it, is it I'm saying man, but is it man versus nature, man versus history? Whereas like standard cliche cookie cutter, it's man versus other is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then the ghost story is man versus himself, but then is folk horror man versus history?
I think that's a really interesting way of describing it.
Yeah.
Because is that the vibe that we're like? Because it's Wicker Man is definitely that.
Absolutely.
The Witch. Oh, because that was the one that I've been giving credit to lately as being why I'm interested in it. We watched that again. And it is what was there before they got there, because they make a big deal out of that one. They just got there. They've it's not working. We're not getting our crops done. There's stuff growing everywhere, but not what they wanted. They can't control it. So is that man versus nature? But then that's also nature run amok kind of a genre. There's more to it than just me versus what won't grow, but it is the history of the land, the history of what was here before us.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-pronged thing where it's the natural element of it, but then there's also like man versus tradition as well, where it's like,
right.
He's being a stick in the mud for us, for cultural norms. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. I like the man versus history. It's just like an interesting, and also very scary.
Yeah.
Like,
and I in no way want to poo on other genres or subgenres, because I mean I hate the term elevated horror. I think it poo poos everyone else. But folk horror is about more than just boo. It is. Because, I mean, I love Children of the Corn. One of the sequels is better than the original one. But that's just there to be a fun time. It's not really...
go ahead, but I have things to say about Children of the Corn.
No, but what I'm saying is I've had this long argument, and I could be a whole episode about that, because it's shot 20 minutes from where I'm sitting. But most of folk horror, it is trying to figure something out. Like as we discussed, trying to figure out what it is. Most of the ones I saw that I really enjoyed was... It's trying to answer a question that it's posing, whereas Children of the Corn is trying to figure out why are they in the corn, and why should people avoid Nebraska? Like, it's not obvious.
Yeah, I think I found Children of the Corn really disappointing, in a way that I think I was disappointed by it because there were some elements of it that I thought were really, really good and interesting. And I think the idea of like the children of a town becoming religious zealots, like conservative religious zealots, and perpetrating a massacre of the adults and like walling themselves off from the world, that's all really, really interesting. And I think that could have been an incredibly good movie. And I think that it's absolutely hamstrung by the supernatural elements.
Yeah.
Like is it intelligent? The intelligent corn, the corn that just kind of wanders into the city and sets up shop, and
I mean, they had to plan it first, so it was invited into the Empire.
Yeah.
See, my problem with it is, and it's such a silly thing because the short story, the King wrote, it's he and his wife are driving across the country as you do in a car. Not you guys, because you guys have perfect relationships. They fight in the car. So the short story is about he and his wife fighting and being mad, and I'm going to drive off this road and kill us both. So in the story, you have this generic any kind of background inciting action is the bad town. They're angry the whole time. Yeah. The movie is they get along great and they go save each other. However, but one of the sequels, it's like the remake. I think it's the one for Sci-Fi. I don't even know what number. There's like 15 sequels.
There's a billion.
There's one, and I don't remember. I think it's just called Children of the Corn, but it plays up on they're mad. Like so they're angry, and everyone crapped on it because, well, why are they angry? It shouldn't be angry. Everyone's just mad in this thing. It's 2007 or whatever year it was. Everyone's mad in horror movies. And I'm like, that's kind of the idea. And then they had a subplot in there about Vietnam, which is a weird thing because when King did his Playboy interview, the big one, like in 81, 82, after The Shining and everything else, the interviewer had said, hey, I started this rumor about the Children of the Corn's about Vietnam, and this is my theory about this. And King goes, what the fuck's that come from? And that wasn't there in my head at all. And he explains the story comes from. So that sequel, which I think works better than the original, is actually based on that Playboy interview. And as far as they're angry, and I don't think they mean to do it, but and the Vietnam vet, and I'm like, this is actually a really, whether it's better or not, but the experiment of it, and that one actually is a bit more folk horror because what they experience in the corn isn't just the kids going nuts. It is like the history he's gone through, his time in Vietnam, the townspeople that are still there. Oh my God, I'm promoting a Children of the Corn sequel. I don't even know the number 2. But that got me sold.
I'll watch it. That sounds really interesting.
It's the only way I can find it is I have to go to the IMDb for the Battlestar Galactica remake, that series, and one of the characters on that is the lead in that, and that's how I find it because I don't have time. I'm 52. I can't sort through Genesis and Mitosis and Fertilizer and all the sequels to it.
There's in the original film there is this really great uncanny moment that does feel very folk horror, which is the married couple, or I guess the not yet married couple, which is a source of tension. Stop at this service station or gas station, and they're looking for a phone because they've hit a child on the road. Also, by the way, aside, this guy is a medical doctor. He is the dumbest doctor in the world. But that's beside the point. They see this guy working on a truck, and they're asking him where they can find a phone, and he says, well, there's a town some ways away. There'll be a phone there. Why can't we go to the closer town? Oh, you don't want to go there. They've got religion. Like, that is a spooky line.
Yeah.
And that could have carried the movie. Like, it's like 1.25 good movies. Yeah. And if they cut off the other 0.25 with the dragon and the gas explosion, like, it would have been a much, much stronger piece.
Mm-hmm. This is where I have to put a pin in that I support that film because I have a coworker whose mom is in the movie. Again, it's shot 20 minutes from here. And the house I live in, when we were looking at it, they had a Children of the Corn VHS tape. So I'm like going, oh, and my wife teases me. Oh, so we're buying the house now because Children of the Corn? And I go, of course. And I find out that it's his daughter was in the film.
That's so cool.
So then I have to support it because it actually, I think I paid for the paint.
Well, it's a great work of Iowa culture for sure.
Yeah. The best part is Iowa culture that was set in Nebraska. We can't even figure that part out. I'll but there's other films that I think that kind of play on folk horror. A film called Pumpkinhead, which I will. It's Stan Winston directed. It's a great monster, and it's got a hag, it's got a witch, it's got the outsiders coming in, killing a kid again because it's a hobby around here, and it plays with the whole, like, it's a witch movie. But I don't think it gets that bit. It's a monster movie. It's not a folk horror movie. Now, guys, I'm going to pose the room right now to cleanse the palate of Children of the Corn. Are witch movies by nature folk horror? Are they interchangeable? Are they totally different?
I think they often are, but not necessarily. And I don't know what it is where that line falls. But like Weapons, great movie. Yeah. I don't think I would call it folk horror.
Not at all. No. That's a good example. I was trying to think of a good example of a witch movie that I wouldn't consider, but that's a great one. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely exist.
I think,
and like the witch, I do.
Yeah.
The Craft, I do not.
Yeah. I do think that like the way that witch stories have come to us is kind of the way that like our cultural memories of like pagan ritual have come to us too.
Okay.
And they're like when I think of the historical figure of somebody who's seen as a witch, they're like an outsider who is very much in touch with nature and probably, grows their own herbs and has this set of knowledge that's like sort of impolite things to know. But they're still like a vital source of knowledge and occasional help when it's necessary. And so I think that like that figure does feel very much tied up in folk horror, but I think that the idea of a contemporary witch is a very different thing. And so I think a big piece of this is often when the story is set. A bunch of the things that I watched were period pieces. And I don't think that that's an accident. I was thinking too about like Nosferatu. I think you could say, particularly Herzog's remake, I think could qualify as folk horror. Particularly the moments where Jonathan Harker, right, is talking to the townspeople on his way to Dracula's castle.
The way to there,
Orlok's castle, and they're telling him all the reasons that he shouldn't go. That feels very folk horror to me, and it is like this place that's isolated in nature. Is one of the major sources of conflict in kind of the first half of the film is that he can't get away because he's surrounded by cliffs and woods and wolves and all this other stuff that's trapping him there.
That's funny because once you mentioned the Herzog, I'm saying yes. But meanwhile, the one from the other year with the Eggers one, I would not call that folk horror for some reason.
Yeah,
and it's the vibe.
That.
But yeah, the Herzog one, on his entire trip to the castle, you could stop off at a Wicker Man on the way there. Turned left at the Wicker Man, because those people really come off as an actual bit of history, whereas the new one is a gothic horror movie, and I don't get that sense that. Because there's maybe that's what it is. There's no one bad guy in folk horror. There's an idea that you're fighting against, or it's out to get you.
Which also brings in the theme of the plague, which is big in the Herzog adaptation.
Yeah. The whole town's
like a plague story feels like real ripe territory for a folk horror, because there's not like a guy who's doing it to you. It's like this generational cataclysm that's just kind of happening, and you have to figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah, that's leaning back into like the nature side of things, like nature being the enemy, or the not even I guess the enemy, but just like the antagonistic force.
Well, then it makes me think about nature's bad. Let's face it; it's 95,000 degrees here. Nature's bad, but is all folk horror? Is it plague horror? But when you're not fighting, and again, adversarial, we're talking about conflict. When you're not fighting the plague, like you're not masking up and you're trying to like stop the disease medically, but when the plague is what's causing it, what's the other that's doing this, whether it's a witch or you didn't pray hard enough or you didn't sacrifice something, I'm not saying that the plague's the bad guy, but I'm saying did that start, is folklore trying to warn us about things like plagues? locals?
I don't know. I mean, like, it seems like the depictions that I've seen of like the bubonic plague and you know, like the Great Death and that sort of thing, are that it just kind of kept happening until it stopped, and there's not a lot to be learned from that, and like the things that you learn from it are at most you can learn how to live and function in a world that's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like, that seems to be kind of the thesis of... I mean, now that I've mentioned it, I keep thinking about Herzog's Nosferatu, and the plague sequences in that feel very much like, you know, somehow the world continues to function not well, but, you know, there is a government there that's doing something, and that's kind of wild. It's not something you'd necessarily expect. I watched The Devils, the Ken Loach movie from 1971, that is also a plague, or it's set in the plague. It's not really a plague story. It's more about like political persecution of a guy. But it's, I think the having that background of just like a mass wave of death in the city really recontextualizes what's going on and makes a story that otherwise might feel like a smaller, more personal, like interpersonal drama. It makes it feel like it's saying something larger about the world that it's in.
Yeah.
My brain is just like...
Well, now I'm stuck in Lighthouse because I'm going so much of that. I need to go watch that again because the talks they have when it's not Defoe just being Defoe is most Defoeist. And some of those talks, and like, you know, he's screaming at that you don't like my lobster? Is he saying don't like? Is it? It's supposed to be funny, or is he saying that this is my life? I'm from here. This is my area. You don't like Maine. You don't like New England. Is that what he's saying? I don't know. So I ask questions.
or like
Spitzer answers them.
It's been a while since I've seen The Lighthouse, so I'm not sure if I'm remembering precisely, but it feels like a lot of that is like a young person kind of coming to terms with the folklore of the place that's been built by like successive generations of people, and like maybe knowing the stories a little bit, but assuming that they're just fairy tales, and kind of coming to terms with this feeling that maybe they're like actually literally real.
Yeah, I my only complaint with The Lighthouse is that how long is that movie?
Hour 50.
Okay,
Hour 50.
I was say, it's not crazy. For some reason, watching that movie feels like a 6-hour long dreadful experience.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
A real chore. Well, not a chore. I mean, it's a delightful movie, but it does take it out of you.
Yeah, I love it. It's very exhausting. It's just like, oh man. Afterwards, I have to shower.
As the oldest one here, it's not the octopus, it's not the fight, it's not the axe. It's that when he's carrying the oil up to the top of the lighthouse, he's bent over. I'm like, that would hurt.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then the phone goes, use a little can, you idiot. And it's like, I would be murdering right then too.
Andrew, have you seen See No Evil?
No, I haven't.
It's a Danish movie. I don't know if I would qualify it as folk horror, but I think it touches on the themes that I find so interesting about folk horror. It's essentially, I recommend you watch it. I am going to have to spoil it a little bit here.
Sure.
But still highly recommend it. It is a dreadful movie. It's miserable by the end of it, but it's very fun to watch. And but it's essentially, it's a family go on vacation. They meet another family, husband, wife, and child, and they're invited to their summer home for the week. And the entire time they're there, this family they don't know very well just kind of pokes and prods at their boundaries, and eventually just like completely disrespects their boundaries entirely. And the whole theme of the movie is, by the end, the whole family is, either killed or kidnapped. And the whole reason for that is because they were too afraid to be rude, essentially.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were getting their boundaries tested, and they didn't want to impose. And so it's kind of I think it's interesting to talk about with this genre, because I think this genre generally the kind of the attitude is like to reward you for letting go of your own customs and accepting other customs. And in this movie, they do that. They essentially like, one of the wife doesn't eat meat for moral reasons, and they cook her duck, and she eats it because she doesn't want to be rude. And that's kind of the beginning of it. And by the end, there's this amazing line where the climax has already pretty much happened. It's like it's all said and done. The evil couple has won the day. And the husband at the very end asks, like, "Why did you do this to us?" And they said, "Because you let us." And which is like such a beautiful line.
Yeah.
But I really like that aspect of this genre where it is like, the other thing that comes to mind is Midsummer. Midsummer feels like such a reflection of Wicker Man, in that Wicker Man is, the guy shows up on the island. He's just the entire time just flabbergasted by everything he comes across. And by the end of it, he's essentially punished for being who he is and staying true to himself, essentially. And where Midsummer is like, by the end of that movie, you're not with the character burning inside of the building. You're on the outside watching the building burn. Because Danny is kind of an outsider who becomes an insider, which is something you don't really see that often, I think, in these types of stories. But it's such an interesting. I love that this genre can give the exact opposite lesson that any other movie inside the genre can give. Like there's so many things you can take from the lessons of these movies when it comes to kind of cultures smashing into each other. And it's like, you can conform, but if you conform too much, then you can get destroyed by it. If you don't conform enough, then you're an outsider, and that never ends well. Like the happiest ending available is, sewing your boyfriend into a bear and watching him burn to death.
Right.
It's like, which again, like really adds to why this genre is so scary, and maybe why, I think part of the theme of folk horror is like the inevitability of like a negative outcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I think one of the things that stays with me most from The Wicker Man and the ending of The Wicker Man is that it feels like he knows, by the time he winds up at the cliff, he knows what's going to happen, and he knows there's nothing that he can do.
Yeah.
And like everybody there knows exactly how it's going to go. And they're all just kind of like playing out these roles that have been written for them 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's something like really, there's something from one perspective that I can see how that could be a terrifying position to be in. And so like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But then also there's something just like infuriatingly stupid about that. And then from another perspective, you can say like, oh, there's something kind of monstrously beautiful about it too.
I was gonna say, it's almost comforting. It's like, well, there's nothing I can do. So why worry about it? Just, Yeah.
I would love to talk briefly about A Field in England, because this was one that really took me by surprise and that I really loved. It's a 2013 film by Ben Wheatley, who I think directed, did he do Meg 2, I think? And some other like kind of low budget sci-fi monster movie kind of things. And then he made this, and has apparently made a few movies like this that are sort of like low budget.
Kill List is one of his?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. So I know him from.
It really does just take place in a field in England, set during the English Civil War. And there's this guy who's kind of an academic, which is particularly unusual in this era, and particularly next to a battlefield, is like trying to track down somebody who stole some papers from his master or his mentor or boss or something. He's accompanied by these deserting soldiers. And just it's all in one field, and really weird stuff happens.
Yeah. Yeah, mushroom.
Did either of you manage to give that a watch?
Yeah, I saw it and absolutely loved it. I was like blown away by it. I was glued to the screen. I think what really sold that movie for me is how much love and attention was given into writing these characters.
Yeah,
the characters were so good. They were so fun to watch and see them interact with each other. It's a very funny movie, which I wasn't expecting based off the trailer.
There's a guy who's like just kind of in a Shakespeare play you'd call him the fool, who's like a kind of a minstrel. He was a soldier, but he didn't really belong on the battlefield. And there's a moment where he says, I think I've worked out what God is punishing us for. Everything.
Yep.
And he's so delighted by this discovery.
That's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah, it's so good. He was my favorite character by far. He also, there's a great line where the main character like is going off about like, oh, when I survive this, I will increase my art and my academics, and I'll write a book and all this stuff. And then the foolish guy, I think his name was Friend. He's just kind of like, well, what's he saying? And the other guy's like, he's saying he won't fuck up next time. He's just like oversimplifying the speech so perfectly.
Yeah, it's really humanizing, and I think it's like this is really. My New Year's resolution for the year was to read every work by William Shakespeare. And so I'm about halfway through now. And a lot of his, like, he's not a medieval playwright, but he wrote a lot about the medieval era. And I think that that's kind of what I picture in my head is when I think about that era in English history is these like larger than life figures with larger than life struggles. And so it's really lovely and refreshing to just see some guys, who are like they want to go to the ale house and have a beer, and they don't want to fight in this war. It doesn't make any sense to them.
Yeah, no dog in the fight.
Right, exactly. It's so refreshing. And then they're also like, because of the world that they were raised in, they're incredibly superstitious. And they encounter this sorcerer kind of person. One of the things I kept thinking about the movie is like, it's a major plot point that they're all on magic mushrooms. Like they've been dosed with magic mushrooms basically so that they can be controlled, so that they'll just do the work that's put in front of them. And I kept thinking like, there's historical examples of mass psychogenic illness where people see a whole town of people would see a big face hovering in the sky, or there'd be ergot poisoning from a batch of bread and everyone would hallucinate. And I think it's enough that these guys think that this guy is a sorcerer. Like, I don't know that the movie has an opinion about whether or not he's actually doing this horrific magic. Yeah. It's just enough that they think he is.
Yeah, I love that there's the moment where he like threatens one of them. He's like, I'm going to turn you into a frog if you don't, whatever. Right. And later on, in a very frank shot of a penis, he's getting inspected and he's just like, oh yeah, no, I think you just have an STD. And he's like, oh, okay, so I'm not getting turned into a frog.
Right. What a relief.
Right. But yeah, I love that aspect of it where it's just kind of the mushrooms and the way that it's edited when our main character's really tripping. It's just like two different scenes overlapping each other and just shots cutting back and forth.
Like flickering kind of mirror images back and forth.
It's very disorienting.
They also do this lovely thing. Like, you can tell that this filmmaker is just in love with the form of filmmaking. They'll do this thing where it's kind of broken into chapters, and at each chapter break, there will be a long shot that's like a tableau of all the characters frozen in a pose. But it's not a freeze frame. Like, you can see the trees and stuff moving behind them, but they're just like holding a pose for a moment that's going to be in some way illustrative of the scene that's about to happen. Yeah. Really, really gorgeous work.
Yeah, it's just a weird little cool movie. It was never even on my radar. I've never heard of it before it was brought up in the documentary. But yeah, I
Did
highly recommend it.
Did the doc mention that maybe the witchcraft was just moldy bread, or is that something else I watched? Was that in the documentary?
I mean, that is a thing.
Yeah.
Ergot poisoning was a thing that would happen. It's a fungus that grows on wheat. That's what LSD is derived from, basically.
I think you know too much about that, Andrew. We should probably stop recording right here.
But there have been examples of like the baker in town would bake a batch of bread for the day out of infected wheat, not knowing that it was infected, and everyone would eat it, and they'd see angels descending from heaven, or they'd all start dancing around the church, and they wouldn't stop until they fell down. And that's just a thing that used to happen sometimes.
Which I mean, I imagine there's probably some harsh negative side effects to that, but also like if you're living in a village your whole life, that's kind of fun.
It's got to be super boring. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So remember that time we all got messed up on bread and saw God?
I just want to point out that Andrew's New Year's resolution is reading all of Shakespeare. Mine was not drinking soda anymore. Just putting that out there.
I haven't had a New Year's resolution in like 10 years, so.
Well, now you better start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the basic bitch who wants to. My resolutions. I'm going to quit doing resolutions. Yeah, I'm so funny. I was 12. God, no. I think that was one. That had to be in the documentary or something. Because I'm not that smart to know that the food poisoning might have been the cause of most like the mass delusions kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Wasn't that also the Lighthouse has a subplot about that they run out of water, they run out of booze, they're drinking the fuel mixed with honey.
Right.
Well, that's kind of the same thing. We were trying to decide last night, what was that? Is it kerosene or was it whale oil? Because that wouldn't be poisonous, I'm assuming. But
right.
Oh, good stuff. Which also makes me, in the middle of that, makes me think of the modern day. Again, when they were first making folk horror movies, there wasn't a genre yet. I mentioned before that the slashers weren't slashers when they were being made. It wasn't until they were making them later on to recreate a recipe.
Yeah.
So in the 70s, they weren't making folk horror movies. They were just making movies. And then, history calls them this kind of thing. So now we have Midsummer, we have The Nun. I'm like, is there anything else that's really kind of recreating, celebrating that now?
Yeah, I don't know. I was really looking for like really clear modern examples of or contemporary examples of folk horror, and A Field in England is kind of the closest I could get, I think. I did also watch, what is the filmmaker's name? I watched a film called Enys Men, E-N-Y-S Men, from 2022. And I did not write down the filmmaker's name, but it's about a woman. It's set in like the mid-70s, and it's this woman on a deserted island who's just, her only job there is like monitoring the growth of an endangered flower, and she's the only one who lives on this island. And she just goes out and logs the temperature of the ground every day and logs it in her notebook, and then the rest of the day she's having weird hallucinations about the coal miners and ship hands who used to live on this island. But it's interesting because it feels very much, it doesn't just feel like a period piece. It feels like it's trying to look and feel like a movie that was made in the 70s. And I think it's like, that's often like even The Lighthouse in a lot of ways feels like a much older movie. And I'm wondering whether that's a component of what like current folk horror does. Is it tougher to make a folk horror film that feels like it's made by somebody who's seen an iPhone,
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of, I mean, like Midsummer does a good job by just moving it to a location where, it is like a...
Yeah, Midsummer feels pretty like its own thing and feels pretty of the time.
Yeah. Which is interesting. The one that comes to my brain is not the American La Llorona, but there was one, I think it's actually in the documentary, they talk about it briefly.
Yeah.
But it's actually, I can't remember when it came out, but it's a foreign film.
Yes.
That really goes into like the aspects of war and stuff. That that movie was really good. I was gonna rewatch it for this, but I didn't have the chance to. But I had seen it a couple of years ago. I think once you kind of leave, there's another great one, a Korean movie about like a shaman and a serial killer who like uses demonic presence to kind of, and that really goes into like geomancy, which is like an actual career you can have where you bless the land and things. I think once you leave, like, you know, like kind of American, European, go to these other cultures, there are a lot more modern representation of their folklore. Like, so I think it can be done, I guess is my point. It can be done well. I think maybe it is just like, it's not, maybe it's something weird with like American. You were saying like America is still relatively new compared to a lot of these other cultures. And I think maybe that it's like all of us are kind of brain stuck in one like time period.
It's interesting though, but because it feels like there's so much fertile ground for folk horror movies about America. Like I've seen the idea expressed before that America's haunted, that there's just so much blood, like everywhere you look, we're just swimming in a sea of generations of blood and turmoil and pain. And it's really interesting that our cinema hasn't done a lot to confront that. I think at least in horror that I think there are certainly movies that do, but it doesn't feel like there are a lot of, I can't think of a ready example. And I think that like Australian cinema does a much better job of addressing its colonial past through horror. Like I think that you can see that in Picnic at Hanging Rock, and there's plenty of other Australian films that kind of look more frankly at their own history and are willing to say like, oh, this is dark, this is grim. So there's a section in the documentary. I want to take kind of a detour here if we have a little time, because I want to make an honorable mention of a movie that I watched from the documentary. There's a section where they talk about indigenous film, and that really was interesting to me because I feel like, an indigenous filmmaker in North America would have a lot of cultural history to draw on to make a folk horror film, and I'm really curious if there are more examples, because there aren't a huge number that I was able to find, but one that the documentary calls out is a Canadian film from 2018 called Sagawe Ku'una. I'm sure I'm butchering all these pronunciations. It translates to Edge of the Knife. And it's a beautiful film. It's set in like off the North Pacific coast of British Columbia. It's a period piece set in the 19th century in this indigenous fishing community, before they had made contact with colonizers. So it is like purely an indigenous story without any outside influence from anywhere else in the world, which I thought was really fascinating. And it's one of the movies that I'm not totally sold on it being folk horror. I think it's folk horror in that the story is one that's kind of based on archetypes from this culture's folklore. Okay. It's about this guy who his irresponsible plans result in the accidental death of his young nephew, and he's like consumed by guilt and trauma, and he like runs off into the woods and forgets what it is that makes him human, and he becomes this like monster who's just obsessed with eating everything all the time. Really, really gorgeous movie. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is that it's the story of making the film is unlike any other filmmaking story I've heard before. They went about it in a way that feels almost backwards, because it's the Haida Gwaii civilization culture have their own language called Haida that at the time was considered an endangered language. There were less than 20 people who spoke it fluently. And a college professor somewhere in Canada was like, it would be a really interesting idea to make a movie in this language as like a teaching aid and as like a form of cultural outreach, and also as a gesture towards reparations for the Canadian government spending the last 100 years trying to like systematically erase this language and culture off the face of the planet.
Right.
So they took pitches from members of this very small community, and they selected a story that was written by these two brothers, Gwai and Jaden Edenshaw, and adapted it into a script. One of them co-directed the film with Helen Hong Brown, who was also, I believe, descended from this community. They cast all non-actors in all the roles. None of the actors spoke Haida fluently when they were cast. And so in addition to needing to learn how to act, they also had to learn this language. They had, sometimes you watch a movie and there's like just an incredibly long list of animators who did the CGI for the film. This one, that list is all translators and language consultants.
Oh, that's awesome.
Who like pre-recorded the lines so that the actors could learn them phonetically. And they studied the language. Wow. They got they had in the film the men have these family crests, animal faces tattooed on their chest. The actors actually got those tattoos for real in the hand-poked process. As preparation for the role. And it's an incredibly immersive story, really, really beautifully told. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I don't know if it's folk horror. It doesn't necessarily push that button in my brain that a lot of the movies that I think of as real folk horror do. But anyway, I just wanted to shout it out. There's also a really excellent New York Times article. I don't know if I have the title of the article, but there's a New York Times article that came out when the film was released about the making of this film and all the strange and difficult work that went into getting it done.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as like Scorsese in film preservation, that's great and all, but this movie actually like preserving a language. It seems a little more important than keeping copies of I Married an Axe Murderer. Yeah.
Also, I want to touch on while we're on the subject. There's an incredible line in the documentary where they were talking about like Native Americans and America's kind of like romanticism of their culture and how everything just gets mashed into one thing. And and I love there's a guy who says it's like, modern Americans are terrified of sacred grounds from Native Americans. I have bad news for you. It's all sacred.
Yeah. I think specifically they're talking about The Shining, and he says everywhere is an Indian burial ground.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. I was like, that's great.
Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. But yeah, I think you're right that there isn't. It's weird that there isn't a lot of examples of Native American horror that's actually done in like a respectful, that actually puts the time and the effort in to understand the culture and the fears that they had, and then bring those fears, to life. Because I feel like that's a big part of folk horror in general, as well.
It's probably a money thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like, we in Canada that the history is particularly stark, but in America we also have this history of like residential schools and trying to erase cultural knowledge and systematically exclude indigenous people from like the creative end of filmmaking.
Right.
And I think that like I would love to see more. It's one of my, it's not an official like read all of Shakespeare resolution, but one of my resolutions for myself that's ongoing is to try and see more indigenous film, particularly Native American film.
Yeah.
One of my favorite writers, Stephen Graham Jones, indigenous writer, but the most cowboy yokel you're ever going to meet. Some of his books are like My Heart is a Chainsaw, Only Good Indians. The guy is prolific to the point of being divergent. He's probably written 2 books before he started recording tonight. But I love about his stuff, he'll have stuff that is very accessible, but it's also it's like underneath a slasher story, which is in books, not in a movie. So it's got this weird layer to it. So it's a history book of slasher movies gone through like if the Scream lens, but it's for indigenous characters, and it's a great example of these are just people. But at the same time, he's also kind of flipping off the white man who played all the bad guys in the cowboy movies. But it probably is a money thing. It's probably like you're not going to get studio to give $100 million because they can't secure the rights to something if they can't say.
And this is like, I have a feeling about whether or not America's a shithole country, and I think
not
that
get political while talking about horror movies.
like the reason that a film like Sagawe Kuuna was made was because of government funding for the arts.
Okay.
It was like $1.8 million to make or something like that. Not a lot in as far as a film production is concerned, but a lot for an independent film.
Yeah.
And that kind of grant money just doesn't exist in the United States. And if it does, it's very much there are like political aesthetic priorities for how that money is awarded that make it really unlikely that a film like this could be made here.
Yeah.
Well, you said grants, you get tax breaks for shooting in like Atlanta or something.
Right.
And then if you're in Atlanta, you can't have.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
We don't have we have an organization called the National Endowment for the Arts, but it doesn't work the way it was intended to. And it certainly doesn't work the way it does in a country like Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of
which is not to say that Canada's perfect, but I think they're doing better than.
No, let's be nice to Canada because that's my get out of jail free card here. Pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of cold up
just
there.
a general public service announcement. There's a thing that I learned, which is that I am a Canadian citizen.
Oh, really?
And you might be too. If you can prove that you are a direct descendant of somebody who was a Canadian citizen, you are a Canadian citizen.
Okay, that's very funny because yeah, sure, why not? My dad passed recently, and I was always my whole life I was raised that for the first half of my life, we had relatives on the Mayflower. So we're old school America, been here from the beginning. Find out later on, the guy was like the boat's priest. So he didn't have kids. So then it became, my grandpa came over from England. So we're just very English coming over here. So again, we're English to American. Find out after my dad passed, no, he's Canadian. He was born there.
Oh,
there's photos. So I'm like,
yeah. If you can get a copy of that birth certificate and the proving it is always the tough part.
Yeah,
but there you can get a Canadian passport.
Andrew, did you go through the process of?
I'm in the process of it right now. My grandfather was born in Canada, and there's a lot of bureaucratic nonsense in the way of like actually getting the paperwork and getting the passport. But I've started it.
That's interesting,
and I think it's a good idea for anyone who is interested in that.
So my dad's Canadian.
Yeah, for no reason whatsoever.
Your grandpa, and then Jesse. Sorry.
Yeah.
Enjoy Children of the Corn 36.
My family's from Germany. It ain't happening.
You can go back there. They're doing pretty good now.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say on the Native American kind of side of things is it kind of sucks that the only time that we do get like a major movie that does do it in a respectful way, it's almost kind of a gimmick. The thing that comes to mind is Prey. I
haven't seen it. Have you seen it? I'm curious about it.
Yeah, I love it.
It's solid.
Yeah, it's good. But it does. They did put a lot of effort into. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the tribe was or the that group of people, but I guess they used the actual language and everything, and they hired actors that could speak the language and things. Amber Midthunder, I think, is the name of the main
Midthunder,
actress. Yeah. And she's fantastic. But yeah,
I think you can play it in the language. You don't have to play it in English.
Oh,
right,
cool.
right.
I think that's what's really neat about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what it is. Is that they did like a cut of the with the original language, which is really cool. But yeah, like something like that happens, once every 50 years.
Yeah.
If it happens again in 50 years, then it'll be once every 50 years. But
so you guys enjoy the next one. I'm screwed. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I that's it. That's the point. It's been made.
As we're sitting here, I mean, yeah, there should be more, and there's There's more out there that need to make, and it probably comes down to like a money or the rights kind of thing. And it's also like who's going to go see it. And it's like when we're getting folk horror movies, we're probably not getting ones because it's such a hard thing to define. How do you get a studio to pay for it? So we need to have be independent stuff or a hidden movie that's under the radar folk horror, like Hot Fuzz.
Yes,
is a folk horror movie that no one notices because it's hiding behind a cult. It's hiding behind. It's literally set in the backyard of Wicker Man. It stars the guy from the Wicker Man, if I remember right. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. My brain's hurting.
Dumb
Yes,
question to end it on. Are horror movies centered around like holidays? Do you think that qualifies as folk horror?
Oh, that's so that you're saying that Halloween 3 is a folk horror,
right? Halloween or like Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, pagan. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see it. I mean, I think it depends on how the holiday itself is treated.
Not inherently, but.
So Groundhog's Day is a horror movie with Bill Murray. Okay.
You say that, but I think it maybe is.
I think it is a horror movie.
I don't think it's a folk horror. I don't think it qualifies quite, but it's.
I did watch that movie. Back when I was drinking, I watched Groundhog's Day, and I've seen it many times. Not for the humor, and it's the most horrifying thing ever. If you're like just flat. No, when I was quitting smoking, so I was on Wellbutrin. So I was on this to get rid of the cigarettes, and I watched it when I had no sense of humor at all, and I'm like, it's horrifying. He's been
really
doing this
dark.
for 5,000 years.
Yeah.
And he watches the same guy die every night. This is a nightmare. And then I quit smoking, so now I laugh at it again. So
All's well.
Yeah, all's well.
All right, we've been going on for a minute here, so we should probably wrap it up.
Well, it's us Canadians, we do that, eh? We ramble, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for having me on again. This was a delight, and I was worried that I wouldn't have anything to say about this, but I feel like I did actually have a lot to say about it, and I'm gonna keep hunting for these movies. I really like this subgenre, and I hope there are more movies like this in the future because I feel like I don't know, like I feel like we have a lot to learn from this kind of story.
Well, when you find a genre that you don't know much about, and you just dive in, because it's not like it's movies that aren't made specifically for you. Like I can go watch a superhero movie and forget the whole thing and get the exact thing out of it everyone else did. But when I dig into when I go on a Kurosawa binge, and I'll spend 3 months watching everything I can and not knowing it, and it's not all spoon fed to me. Then I'll have to go read the books about it and go through like Lone Wolf and Cub and try and figure out what am I missing here. Or go through my Giallo, the Argento stuff, where I don't get the references. So like this. There's so much I'm missing. And by the way, don't watch Wicker Tree. But in Wicker Man that I still don't understand, that I've watched it how many times now, and I'm still kind of going, oh, there's more to this town than I actually get.
Right.
So I love so much about it.
Yeah, just like a brief little glimpse into the society that you just kind of, every time you're just scooping up a little bit more info.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on again, boss man.
Yeah,
we appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. This is such a return to like kind of how we used to do these episodes, where we just kind of didn't really have like a solid plot that we had to go through, but just instead just a theme that we can kind of just talk about, and it's so refreshing and so much fun to prepare for these kinds of episodes.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I hope it's worth listening to.
yeah, me too. I think it will be. But yeah, and so yeah, thanks again for joining us, and we'll definitely have you on again sometime soon.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you so much again, Andrew, for joining us again there, giving us more of your precious time and brain power. What a great discussion. I love, we need to do more of these just kind of general broad discussions because they're so much fun.
Have a topic and have someone come in that can just make us feel smart for talking to him. It's so nice talking to him and not having to have my Pell Grant, reassessed. It's such a kind of a fun, and it's just as far as giving someone who just gives the subject that sort of like serious attention. It's sort of like makes you like we're not shooting the shit. We're actually doing something here.
Yeah, for sure. It's greatly appreciated, and I also love I'm so grateful for this podcast because I know I shouldn't go on a tangent because it's already a long episode, but it kind of scratches that itch, my want to kind of learn that I always, you always kind of have throughout life of just wanting to learn more. And this podcast has been a great excuse for me to kind of like do studies on things and yeah, it's cool. It's great stuff. And thanks again, Andrew, for joining us.
Yeah. And to viewers, if you noticed Jesse and I getting quiet, it's because we were just taking notes. And we're kind of like transported back to film
Right,
school,
right,
going
yeah.
like, okay, the teacher's talking.
It does feel that way a little bit sometimes.
A little bit. And I caught myself going, God, when's lunch? Okay.
But yeah.
Anyway,
So,
again, thank you, Andrew. That was a delight.
yeah. So this genre is super wide, and yeah, I would love to hear about any hidden gems that anyone knows about, and if you would like to let us know about your favorite folk horror hidden gem, hit us up at TDMMVI pod at all your social medias down below, or you can email us directly at tdmmvipod@gmail.com, and yeah, let us know your recommendations, and I guess just like what is how would you define folk horror as well is kind of an interesting point because it is such a broad thing. So
Yeah.
but yeah, next week I'm very, very excited to finally finish our series that started a few months back because Evil Dead Burn is finally here.
Finally coming out.
Oh my god, I'm so excited to watch that, and even more excited to talk about it with you. But until then, I'm Jesse Spitzer.
And I'm J.R. Lees.
And this has been The Devil Made Me View It. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thanks, guys.